Mortarion. Of all my sons, he was among the most necessary and among the most tragic. A weapon I forged to fight rot, only to watch him become its champion. A soul I designed to endure, only to see endurance break him. When I think of him, I think of purpose betrayed by its own weight. And I think of my failure. I intended him to be a shield against the warp, a son who would see the lies of false gods for what they were and tear down the tyrants who preyed on humanity. I gave him no gift of charm, no hunger for glory, only will, only the strength to endure what others could not. And in that, I planted the seed of what would destroy him, because a man made only to endure forgets how to hope. He was cast into the storm of the warp, as all my sons were, scattered by fate and ruin, and he fell upon a world that mirrored what I had made him for. Barbarus. A world of poison air and endless mists, a world where monsters ruled and humanity cowered in the shadows of giants. Tyrants who cloaked their corruption in the flesh of men, but whose souls had long been claimed by the warp. A world where no mercy lived and no kindness was remembered. It was one such tyrant who found him, a creature of rot and death who took him to its fortress above the killing clouds. It raised him not as a son, but as a weapon. And Mortarion became what I had designed him to be, without my hand to guide him. He learned to fight, not from pride or ambition, but because the alternative was slavery or death. He learned to hate, not because I made him to, but because of what he saw done to those beneath the rule of monsters. And, with each lesson, the purpose I had given him was hardened, but the wounds of that purpose deepened too. He saw the last remnants of humanity broken beneath those poisoned skies, and in his heart he swore that their chains would be broken, or he would die trying. Even then, he was as I had made him, a blade honed against decay, a blade that never asked what would follow once the rot was cut away. He escaped the heights and came down among the scattered survivors. They feared him at first, a figure from their nightmares. But he bore no hunger for their fear. He asked no worship, he offered no hope. He asked only that they stand. And so they did. He taught them to fight, taught them that death in battle was better than life in chains. He gave them no promise of victory, only the certainty of struggle. And they followed him, because he gave them back their dignity, if not their lives. Mortarion rose as their champion. Each victory left him quieter, because each victory showed how much was left undone. And above them all, the greatest tyrant waited, the one who had raised him, the one who had shaped his hatred as much as his strength, the one who had taught him that only the strong could rule and the weak could only suffer. Mortarion climbed, scythe in hand, breath burning in his lungs, heart set on justice or death. And I came upon him at the last. I saw him as he stood on the cusp of victory, as he had earned the right to his final triumph, and I took it from him. I slew the tyrant. I saved Mortarion's life, and in doing so I broke something in him that would never heal. I thought I had delivered him, but I had only stolen what he had bled to achieve. He did not thank me. He did not kneel. He looked at me, and I saw the truth in his eyes. I had stolen his moment, his justice, his vengeance, the breath of triumph that was to have been his salvation, denied. And yet he followed me. He swore to the Imperium, as all his brothers did, not for love, not for glory, because duty demanded it, because the alternative was to stand alone, and even Mortarion was not made for solitude. I gave him the Death Guard, a legion in his image, unyielding, uncomplaining, built to endure. And I used them as I had made them to be used. Where corruption took root, Mortarion scoured it. Where plagues bloomed, he burned them away. Where worlds resisted with poison or decay, he made them clean through fire and death. He did what I made him for, and I gave him no praise, because I thought duty was enough, because I thought the work was all that mattered. And in that, I failed him. Because a son who is seen only as a tool will one day see his father as a tyrant. His brothers were praised, their victories celebrated. Horus, beloved. Sanguinius, adored. Guilliman, honored. Even those who would one day betray me were sung in triumph. Mortarion was not sung, he was obeyed, and there is no music in obedience. And I saw him grow silent beneath that weight. I saw the bitterness begin to take root, and I let it be, because Mortarion was necessary, because I believed necessity was enough. But bitterness does not stay quiet forever. It feeds on silence. He hated the warp, as I had intended him to. He hated its creatures, its gifts, its lies, but hate is not enough to shield a soul. Hate eats away at what it tries to protect. When Horus raised the banner of treachery, Mortarion listened, not because he longed for power, not because he loved Horus, but because the words of rebellion spoke to the bitterness I had left to grow in him. He followed Horus as he had once followed me, not out of belief, not out of love, out of duty, twisted by disillusion, out of logic, shaped by bitterness, out of the cold certainty that when the work was done, he would be cast aside. He saw no future where his work would be remembered, where his endurance would be honored. And I see now that I left him no future to believe in. I asked him to endure, but gave him nothing beyond struggle, only the endless grind of war, and at the end, silence. So he chose what seemed inevitable, and I saw it. I saw the storm gather. I saw the scythe I had forged turn against the fields I had sown, and still I did not stop it. Mortarion brought the Death Guard into the service of treachery, silent, unrelenting. Their strength became the hammer that broke worlds, not in my name, but in defiance of it. They marched not for glory, but because they knew no other path. A path I had shown them again and again, with every order given and never praised, with every burden placed and never shared. And the warp, which he hated, waited. In the storm of the heresy, Mortarion's legion became trapped in the tides of unreality. Their strength, their pride, their endurance, all rotted from within. Plague blossomed in the holds of their ships. Disease consumed what war had left untouched. Men who had fought 1,000 battles fell to their knees, weeping, their bodies betraying them at last. And Mortarion watched. He watched the suns he had shaped crumble. He watched all he had built reduced to ruin. And he understood that hate alone would not save them. That hate had sustained him but offered no purpose beyond the struggle. That the chains he had sworn to break had only changed their master. And he saw, in that moment, what he had long feared to name. That the hand he had served was no different from the hands he had sworn to destroy. That the father he had followed was, in his eyes, another tyrant. And with that truth, the last of his faith withered. He no longer fought for freedom. He no longer fought for justice. He fought because there was nothing left to believe in. And then Nurgle spoke. The plague god did not promise victory, did not promise power. He offered only what Mortarion in that moment desired most, an end to the struggle, an end to the pain. A silence deeper than the grave. The Death Guard became the bearers of decay. Their endurance became corruption. Their strength became ruin. Their silence became the stillness of rot. Mortarion became what he had always despised, a creature of the warp, a lord of pestilence, a slave to the god he had sworn to defy. But by then, he no longer cared. At Terra, Mortarion brought death as he had never known it. The air itself became his weapon. The winds choked with his gifts. Pestilence seeped into every breach, every wound, every breath. He did not rage. He did not gloat. He reaped, silent, relentless, as he had always done. And I watched the scythe I had forged swing toward the throne I had built, and I saw the truth of what I had made. Mortarion did not come to destroy out of hatred. He came because destruction was all he believed was left to him. He brought ruin not with hate, but with the inevitability of the storm. Still, the walls held. Still, I endured. Still, the master he had come to see as another tyrant did not fall. When Horus fell, Mortarion turned from terror. Not in sorrow, not in rage, in silence. Because even that war had offered no vindication. He withdrew into the eye of terror, into the embrace of Nurgle's domain, and there he remains. His realm is not a throne, not an empire. It is a garden of rot, a garden where decay blooms eternal, where disease is the only harvest, where Mortarion walks, his scythe trailing ruin, his breath a fog of contagion. He tends to plagues that bear his name. He shapes pestilence, as once he shaped defiance. He builds not fortresses, but tombs, not monuments, but warnings. He no longer seeks the galaxy's fear. He no longer seeks its love, only its end. And I see him still, in the warp's shadows, in the sickness that creeps at the edge of my Imperium, in the rot that follows where no light remains. He is no longer my son, and yet he is. The Reaper I forged, the servant of decay who once swore to destroy it. The proof that purpose without strength of will is nothing. Mortarion chose his fate. He chose to kneel where he could have fallen with honor. He chose to serve what he hated because he lacked the courage to die defiant. Now he waits. He watches. He reaps, not as a liberator but as a slave to the rot he once fought. And when the end comes, as it must, I know whose scythe will fall first. Mortarion, the son I made, the son who became what he swore to destroy. And in him, the heresy's true cost is made plain.